What's up, everybody? Today we're kind of taking a look at beyond what these reflectors do, but how you can use them. Okay, so here's more, I guess, real-world applications when I would kind of use these reflectors. You have the 60C again with the projector, and that's shooting across the room, perfectly cut to that number 4 across here. A little spill, whatever. And you can see it's pretty subtle. Bring down the exposure, there you go. But this slash of light on a back wall is definitely one of the ways I was thinking of using it. But why would you do that if you can just use the projector in the first place to do the same job? Let's see how that works. What you could do is you can have your source coming from here and make your blades cut in a way that it looks like it's sun coming through. But the one thing you don't get with that you do get with the reflector in that extra distance is the fall off. So look how intense the beam is here versus there. And secondly, I didn't want to do this because if that were sunlight coming through, it would come in from this side where the couch is, and I guess, yeah, we can rig whatever, we can go crazy, maybe an auto pole somewhere, and shoot it from this side. But let's just use the reflectors. Okay, so we got the ellipsoidal doing the same thing here on the wall. And as you can tell, it does not look anywhere near as natural or pleasing. Maybe that's just me. And there's a few things we could do about that, so let's try them out. First thing we can do is play with the focus. Maybe slightly blur it. You can see our green and magenta coming in. So how about there, right? Still not as good. We could mess with the cutters to do our best, but let's see. You start to get the edge there. So it doesn't fill in as nice. Maybe it'll pass on camera, you know, when it's out of focus in the background. But you can see it doesn't fill in as much. And that's the edge of the beam there on our 36. And we're pretty much at the back of the wall here. So we could only get smaller from here. The one major positive is how much more output you get. And you know, you could choose your fixture to do the job. You could bring this down. But still, those edges are not as, the fall off on the edges are not as nice as they could be. We're just on 8% here in daylight. I think something like this is probably the best we can get. If we can have it coming in my opinion, something like that pass. For this next part, we'll need a little cardellini and an extra knuckle. So what this is would be a backlight in tight spaces. something that's easy to fit up close, something you could sneak up with no cables, no power, something that can quickly change the look of without changing the profile. What I mean by that is if you want a softer look, instead of needing, I don't know, a lantern or something that comes out and could enter your frame in a situation like this, you simply just swap out one diffuser for another. So what I normally do before this, in this situation, if there's more headroom, maybe throw up a unit with a softbox or lantern like I mentioned. But in this situation, a tube would be the best. So let's compare that to a tube after we do our test. Okay, just snuck this thing into the corner. Now it's cut down with the blades. You can kind of see the effect here, especially along the edge of that chair. And the fall off, kind of mapping it here. So if my hand was a subject here, it's pretty nice. Check out the nice backlight. Okay, I know this is just a phone camera. It may not give you the best idea of what it's going to look like on screen, but you get a general idea. So, as I mentioned there, the exposure seems consistent from my head to my shoulders. It's kind of something hard to achieve when you have a source. Let's grab the tubes then. Okay, we've got the tubes. I just powered one of them on, set to daylight, and we'll put it here in place of our reflector. Before then, I'm going to do one more demo and just try to keep the camera still so you get the best idea of comparison. So we got the Forza 60 over there bouncing into number 2. Let's just kill that. Restrike it. Notice the outlines. Notice the exposure value here versus here. Let's just go across the CCT range. And some color for fun. You may use this once in a while for color, so how's that look? To get this tube up also takes a little bit more real estate and a little bit more devices. Okay, this time we have a T2C, or whatever the hell it's called, behind me. Set to daylight, just like the NAND light was. This is running at 50%, trying to match the same brightness. I have it hooked up here on the iPad. Could dim it. But, kill it. Okay, now that bad boy's up with its LCD. Let's try that again. So looking at this now, probably should have gave myself some sort of a key. But fuck it, it's just myself here, so this demonstration is really just for what the backlight's doing. Just running through the CCT range here and going to some color stuff. See how that works. Just compare that to reflector again. Right back to the reflector for comparison. Here it is back in daylight. Tungsten lowered 1800 up to 20K. Here's the tube again. Just flashing on and off to see its effect. Going through CCT range as well. Now let's go and check out our hue loop. This is it with the number 2, and here it is. It's again with the tube and its LCD. Then I just picked a random hue. Let's go with 120 green. The reflector on and off. And same with the tube here. Of course, there are endless use opportunities for these reflectors, but that's how I've used the number 4, and that's how I've used the number 2. So how would I use the number 1, and how would I use the number 3? Okay, so the way I would use a number 3, I assume, number 3 being the largest spread and the softest, I guess you can't really call it source, they're all the same size, but the softest look, I would use, of course, as the key. And if I were to do that without the reflector, normally I would go a couple different ways. I would do a 6x6 of magic cloth, right? Maybe magic cloth, maybe something else, unbleached muzz or half soft frost, or maybe even ultra bounce. But the quicker way, which I'm going to do right now because I'm too lazy, I'm not doing all this shit by myself, is just a 40 by ultra bounce flap is another great way to make a key. So I'm going to compare the number 3 with a fixture into the flap. Okay, so we got the floppy here. Get it to its white side. Okay, and again, I'm just sticking with this 60C and the projector mount just because it's right here. Of course, you can really grab anything. I think honestly it'd be a better idea to go for something with a more native wider spread, like a panel of sorts. Okay, so let's strike this. Okay, so we just got this shooting straight in there. Getting as wide as it can without overlapping the frame at all. Check out those soft shadows. Don't really appear until you meet contact with them. Let me just step in here. Maybe I could do a better job at filling up the flap, but that's okay. Okay, here's the spotlight going into the number 3, and you can tell it looks a lot harsher. Maybe it's just more output, but it definitely looks spottier on the face there. And it still seems more sourcey. I think that's just due to the fact that it's 10 inches and not 80 by 80. The effect of the number 3, and right away you can tell that it's more controlled, the light, which is not a good or bad thing. Actually, in this case, I'd prefer it to be a bit wider, and you can tell the shadows are soft, but they are slightly sharper than what you get off that flop we just had. That's contributed to the size of the reflector, being that it's only a 25. Now we could move it in, and I may try that as well. Okay, gonna strike, kill, and restrike the light a couple times to get a feel of what it's actually doing. Okay, so I've moved the reflector even closer. Tried to put my face into its beam, and you could tell really how spotty it is and how sourcey it is. So I don't know, it's a weird thing. You move it closer and the source gets larger relative to the subject. But for this reason, it's much more intense and the fall off is much more drastic. And a lot of times these reflectors are used to combat that. So, I don't know. I don't think, at least with this size, this is a good replacement to a key light. That is if you're using something like 4x or bigger. That being said, I see how popular it is to kind of throw this into the mix of a bounce light with products like the Snap Grid, or just seeing kind of people replicate sunlight plus skylight combination when bouncing big ultra bounce plus a harder reflector. So I'm curious what this kind of soft number 3 would do in combination with the ultra bounce behind it. Okay, so we've got a combination of both the ultra bounce plus our number 3 caught in the middle of that beam. This is the result we get. And at first glance, you might not be able to tell how much is going on. But simply pan this around, you can see the soft punch that we have control over. I'm going to land it there on that yellow pillow. In addition to the ultra bounce behind it, which is filling in nicely. So again, what you see here is a combination of the number 3 in conjunction with this ultra bounce. But what would it look like if we took away a reflector? Now we're back to that soft look. I can introduce this, just panning it over. I do think it's an interesting look. I'm not sure if the two of them together beats the ultra bounce alone. It's hard to tell over the phone, but it does seem similar to a beauty light in that it kind of gives off this soft, punchy look with a contrast that seems to wrap the edges. Unfortunately, when filming this video, it was not sunny like the day demonstrated here. But what I wanted to get at was I would really use the number 1 to redirect sunlight, kind of reposition it into a window how I would want it to be. Okay, here's some more tests at night since there's no direct sun, and we can really see how far this light will travel with the number 0. And the amount of transmission is actually really surprising. I believe this was the FS300C, just with the Fresnel. So this was sometime last year with homemade CRLS together with some Home Depot crap. And I would use the number 1 the same way.
Homemade CRLS from Home Depot for like 15 bucks. Look how awesome and directional they are.
Here is the sun reflected off the homemade CRLS coming in.
And you can mount it any way you want. You see how good this light is? It's because it's just sunlight.
Here it is, on and off.
The reflected.
Another thing I am interested in the number 1s for is to create more space between the subject and our actual source within confined spaces. And the way you go about that would be kind of use the number 1 as a bounce into another reflector that would appear here, and push that way once again. Okay, so here's the 60C shooting into our number 1. That's then shooting back into our number 3. That's then coming across and creating our light here, as you can see on the flower pot. So it's very subtle, and of course you're going to lose a ton of output on the way, just bouncing between the reflectors. But man, does that look good. So in a lot of cases, you probably want something bigger with more output if you're doing this. But kind of got lucky with the cloudy day here, I guess. So far, I think this is one of my favorite results with the reflectors. Just quickly modeling one more time. Here's on, here's off, here's on. So it's a really, really nice natural looking source.
going through a CCT range, and again, let's just play with some colors for fun. And I'll stick with the red kind of so you can see exactly what this is doing. So off and back on. And you know, it doesn't look great with the red, it's just an indication of what's happening. But when it's set to daylight, it looks very, very good. So the closing thoughts on this LiteFlow kit before actually getting to use them on set is they're pretty cool. I've been looking into the LiteBridge or Dado for a while, ever since I'm using my homemade ones. I get a ton of use out of them, and this seems a lot more versatile having your 1 through 4. I guess the price is whatever it is. It's the cheaper of the 3 main kind of brands that do them. For this 25 kit plus 3 rigging options that I purchased separately, and the gloves and tax and all that is about $800. My homemade reflectors that performed similarly were maybe $20. The difference here is this is a precision optics tool. It's made for filmmaking, works with you, not against you, and you have more control with your options. For that, I would totally pay that. I'm curious to see whether or not I'll end up needing different sizes, like I talked about in this video. Imagine going larger, going smaller is kind of a really niche scenario. But these are a great addition. I've been messing with the homemade ones for too long. So it's great to finally have a more controllable professional option for reflected light. Let me know if you want to see more. Peace.